I had the opportunity to go to church, and during the worship time, the Lord, He just encountered me. He knew what my heart needed and what I just wanted, in a sense. He gave me this vision, and it was like a little like movie in my mind. I saw myself sitting on like a hospital bed, and I was just like smiling and waving. And for me, like I've always had really bad memory. Like majority of my life I don't remember. I only remember, even for this testimony, because of the Lord, but also because of the stories my parents have told along the way. Like I was never able to remember anything, and it was always like really hard for me to visualize things. So he gave me something that I knew it was not from me at all. Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm 25. I'm from Seoul, New Jersey, and this is my testimony. So I grew up in a house where my parents were going to Catholic church, but I didn't really understand it at all, even though I went through many years of going to the Catholic Church and just going to CCD and all the things. I got confirmed. But after I got confirmed, I stepped away from it because I didn't really understand anything that they were saying. And I didn't see a reason for why I would follow this in a way. Just things didn't make sense. That was really the biggest thing. And so I just went on my way after that. Before my life in Christ, there was a lot of medical challenges. So I was born with a rare disease called alpha-manostosis. When someone is diagnosed with alpha-manostosis, that means that their body is missing one enzyme. And with missing this one enzyme, it wreaks havoc on every single cell in the body. And so it leads to a lot of different challenges with muscles, with bones, with the brain. It wreaks havoc on the whole entire body. And so basically when someone is diagnosed, it's a life sentence of one's body degenerating, because it's also a degenerative disease. And so it's likely that when someone grows older without any treatment, they'll be in a wheelchair. They'll have troubles with communicating. They'll have just a lot of things like that they're just not able to do. And it's only because of the degeneration in the body. And someone can also go through psychosis and later on in life. But it's something where there's different forms of alpha-manostosis. Some forms develop more quickly, and then other forms just you don't even know that you have it until you're middle-aged. It just shows up one day. But when I was diagnosed, it was the form that was moderate. So it wasn't a slow progressing form. It was a faster progressing form. This isn't just a rare disease, but it's ultra rare. Currently, it's estimated that really the prevalence of this disease is 1 in a million. And so I got diagnosed when I was 3.5. But that diagnosis took such a long time because they didn't know what they were looking at. I had multiple challenges. When someone gets the diagnosis of alpha-manostosis, this diagnosis means that the parents, they have the same recessive gene. And when it comes to genetics, recessive genes if two parents have a kid and they have the same recessive gene, it's a 25% chance that the kid is going to have whatever the disease is. And so with me, my parents had the same recessive gene, and I was that 25% chance. And so if my parents were to have any more kids, there was going to be a 25% chance that another kid would be born with alpha manostosis. And it's pretty common actually, where people will have multiple kids and multiple kids will then have alpha manostosis. So it started out with like sugars being in my urine from when I was literally a baby. And then I had a skull reconstructive surgery when I was a year and a half because my bones were not growing properly in my skull. And this is something that happens a lot actually in alpha manostosis, but they didn't even say that at that time. It was just known that people have larger foreheads when you are born with this. And so went through that. And I also had a lot of just brain challenges. I was hearing impaired. I had muscle weakness. They're like, pretty much if you think of something, I most likely had that. But all of my organs were pretty much fine. It was more like physical stuff that I was dealing with. I had ataxia, all the things. And so that's how my life started. So once my mom and dad got the diagnosis of alpha manostosis, they really they didn't know what they were looking at, because the geneticist that told them of this diagnosis basically ripped off a piece of paper and wrote a website, and that website was ismrd.org. And this organization was made up of families who had children with alpha manostosis, but also 8 other diseases that fell under the same category of disease. And so my parents were told to do some research, and the geneticists were also going to do some research because no one knew what this was. And it came to everyone's knowledge that there was two different options that could take place. So they gave my parents the options of having me go through no treatment or having me go through a bone marrow transplant. Now, bone marrow transplants at that time, and still are to this day, they're very risky because you are basically taking one's immune system and suppressing it completely. And yeah, it's very dangerous. And even all of the chemo drugs and all of that one goes through, it's a lot on the body. And so it wasn't even like a known fact that this would save my life in a sense, because it could kill me if it did not work. So my parents, they knew all of this going into it, but they wanted to give me the best possible life. And so they decided, they're like, yep, we're going to do the bone marrow transplant. And the doctors are kind of like, oh, are you sure about this? And my parents were like, yes. So I went through a bone marrow transplant when I was 4.5. And it was successful, but there were a lot of challenges after that point because my body just went through this super challenging thing. The only thing that really disappeared once I had that bone marrow transplant was I didn't need hearing aids anymore. I was hearing impaired. I no longer needed hearing aids, and so that was a very positive sign that the bone marrow transplant worked and was doing its job. And so I had a lot of different challenges. And these challenges really were to do with my muscles, with me cognitively, and even just being around other people and just processing conversations, because my brain could only process so fast. And from just my day-to-day life, like I would get so tired because my brain was just trying to process all that was going on around me. Um, and so even in school, it was so challenging because I would go through my day and I was always known for my smile because I think I learned how to smile and just like hide everything. And with having my smile, it hid all of the emotions of what I was experiencing. And no one ever knew what it was that I was going through because they thought that I was able to process everything and all of these different things because I I didn't look different. I looked very normal. And when you have when you have things that people can't see, people think you're normal, and you kind of look the same as everyone else. And so I was going through a lot of different things, and there would be times where, a lot of times actually, where I would come home from school and I would just cry. I don't remember this because of my memory being affected from alpha manostosis, but my parents, they would just say that I would just come home and cry. And the teachers would always be like, well, we had no idea. Like, she's smiling all day. Like, well, why? But it was really probably just because of just my brain having all of these different challenges. That was a very like big challenge with school and stuff like that. But through this process of just growing older, I went through a lot of different therapies. I went through speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, equine therapy. Um, yeah, there's a lot of different therapies. So as I was growing up, I was involved with a lot of just different activities. I did a lot of different sports, did dance. I was actually involved with Girl Scouts. I was involved with Girl Scouts for until the end of my high school career. But we would always like do different things in Girl Scouts. So when I was in middle school, we were doing some sort of badge with like my Girl Scout troop. And it was very like challenging because we were just like braiding each other's hair. And so I had that reconstructive surgery when I was a year and a half. And I don't even know if I like realized the surgery that I went through. Um, but I knew that I had this scar on my head. And so one side it looks like a Harry Potter scar, to be honest. It's like a lightning bolt in a sense because it's a zigzag. But on the other side, it's very thick and not really appeasing to look at all. Um, and you can't see it because of how they do it with how like hair grows out and all that. So it's easy to hide. But when doing hair, it can be a little challenging. And so I was at this Girl Scout meeting and everyone, like we were just braiding each other's hair. Um, and one of the girls, she saw the scar and she kind of freaked out. And then I freaked out because I was like, oh my gosh, why are you freaking out? And so that was a very like pivotal moment for me because it was like someone was screaming and it's not their fault whatsoever because you typically don't see that. It was just a rare moment for them. It was a rare moment for me too, because not everyone even knew that I had that reconstructive surgery, and even to this day people still don't know because it doesn't look like I had one at all. So even in middle school, I still like had a lot of challenges, and my bones, they were always like not super strong. And I think it might be due to the chemo drugs that I was given. But I was with my family and we were at the beach and I was just like running in the ocean. But I like fell because the sand, there was like a little dip in the sand, and I fell and I broke my foot. And that was just something that I was like, well, why did this happen? So I had a boot for a few months, but that healed. And then as I'm like this was me going into high school. It was that summer before high school. But also that summer before high school, my parents had found a new therapy that they wanted me to try. And this therapy really, like, it helped my brain. It was called Brain Balance. And it was something where, yeah, they did a lot of different things for the brain, but they also had this food thing involved with it. And so they did an ALCAT blood test to see what foods my body was sensitive to. And with this, oh gosh, it was a little challenging because they told me that my body was reactive to 80 foods out of 100 that they tested for. And so there was a whole elimination diet and all of that goes on with that. So I basically had to take 80 foods out of my typical eating habits. And so going into high school and just being a high school student and not being able to eat all of the foods that people your age eat every single day, that was a little challenging. But as we were going through this, I was getting like more energy because I was tired all throughout, really just growing up. And so with the combination of the food and then also the other brain things that were happening, like after this program, I was able to then like be involved in things more than I was before. I wanted to go out for the tennis team. I wanted to go out for the bowling team. I wanted to do all these things. And also, I was involved with 6 after school activities. I have no idea how I did all of these things because I never had done that many things before. And so I'm just doing all these things. I have a lot of things that I'm just experiencing for the first time, and it's really great. But then I was in a car accident when I was a sophomore in high school. And this car accident changed a lot of just like how I lived my life, because I then had neck and back issues, and then also just more brain issues because of a concussion. And my brain had already been through so much because of the degeneration from the disease. And it was just another thing that was just, it was really annoying in a sense, because I had all the same brain issues come back from what I was dealing with before, but they came back worse this time. Some of these like brain issues that I was dealing with really involved my sensitivity to light, and then my eyes would just blur. So I wasn't really able to read that often anymore. And it was very challenging because my whole entire life was really just changed with being a high school student. I was no longer able to play tennis. My one doctor that I was seeing at the time, he really fought for me to be able to bowl because the school didn't want me bowling with having a concussion, and it being so long, because it was very drawn out. But he fought for me to be able to bowl and to like be around people my age still and all of that. But then when we got into 11th and 12th grade, that was really when things started to get more challenging, as if they were not challenging enough. I started having panic attacks, and a lot of just depression stuff was happening. And I just remember like when I was going through these panic attacks, like I literally like I didn't know what to do because I didn't know what was causing them. And I just in the moment like I didn't really want to experience this stuff. Like I'm like I'm done. Like it felt like I was going to like die, and I didn't know. And then with the whole like depression stuff, like it was not a great headspace to be in. And at the same time, as I'm exiting high school, a lot of the friends that I had, they were slowly taking themselves away from being around me. And it was because of me having too many issues. And it looked like I had a fantastic life because I had two loving parents, I had a dog, and I had a white picket fence. But my life was not fantastic. Like there were so many times where like I didn't want to be here. And it was very challenging because I lost my pretty much like my whole entire support system from my friends. And there was a point where I was in like the summer before college started, and I was having just a lot of like suicidal ideations, and it was to the point where like I went to the hospital. I didn't stay like inpatient at the hospital, but just having like that experience of like going to the hospital because you feel like you don't want to be here anymore. And it was just it was challenging, but my parents, like, they didn't want me to be in the hospital because I had just turned 18, and I was a very young 18. I didn't know anything of, like, what happens in the world. Really, like, nothing, because I feel like I was sheltered a lot from a lot of just, like, the typical things that I now know of in today's life. But I had no idea of any of that before. And so my parents, they fought that I would not stay in the hospital because they didn't want me to be exposed to all the darkness. And so with that, like my mom, like once we went home, my mom, like she stayed with me in my room just to make sure that I would be okay and that I wouldn't try to kill myself or anything like that. And it was definitely a couple of hard months, like after that experience. And then even just like going into college, Going into college was very challenging because I didn't really know anyone. In a sense, it was a fresh start, um, but it was a very lonely time. Um, and then it was really nice because I then got involved with the Student Government Association at the community college that I was going to, and it was really nice. And I, for the first time, felt like I had more of a community around me, because I never really had that. Like, I had friends, but I didn't experience community all that well. I was still experiencing all of the depression, all of the anxiety, all of it. It didn't go away. It just lessened a little, but there would still be a lot of challenging parts to it, and thoughts and negativity and all of that. Um, but it was about a year later. I was visiting my friend in Virginia Beach. My friend, I met her in preschool, so we literally knew each other for all of our life. And she was my best friend. I was so excited to visit her in Virginia Beach. When we went there, I was sleeping over. My parents were staying in a hotel, but we were just doing a little sleepover. And it was on a weekend, so on Sunday, her and her sister had asked, would you want to go to church? And they're like, you don't have to go to church at all. We're not gonna force you to go. And so I had the opportunity to go to church, and this was probably my first time not going to a Catholic church. But this was actually the time where the Lord encountered me, and I'm so grateful that I said yes, because if I hadn't said yes, I know the Lord would have probably encountered me in another way. But it was just so beautiful because during this service, it was like a special outside service too, so that was just super fun. Um and so we were literally we weren't on the beach, but we were very close to the beach. But we were just worshiping outside. And during the worship time, um, the Lord, He just encountered me. Um, and He did this in a way of me, it just, He knew he knew what my heart needed and what I just wanted, in a sense. So during worship, he gave me this vision, and it was a little movie in my mind, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is wild. Did not know this was a thing. But he gave me this movie, and it was basically I saw myself sitting on a hospital bed, and I was just smiling and waving. And for me, I've always had really bad memory. Majority of my life I don't remember. I only remember, even for this testimony, because of the Lord, but also because of uh the stories my parents have told along the way. Um but he gave me this little video in my brain, my mind, and I was never able to remember anything, and it was always really hard for me to visualize things. So he gave me something that I knew it was not from me at all. And of course I'm like, my goodness, what is this? And so I texted my boyfriend at the time, and I was like, yeah, so this just happened. I don't understand this at all, but I kind of want to explore Christianity. And from that point on, we actually started going to church together. I started learning about the Bible, about praying, about all the different things. I didn't really understand a lot of the things at first, but even though I didn't understand everything, I was reading the Bible, and as I'm reading the Bible, the depression it's starting to lessen even more. And there was nothing that I did in a sense to stop it. I wasn't praying for it to just disappear or anything like that. It just started to go away as I was growing and just reading the Bible and starting to learn about what the Lord says. Life in Christ for me now is a lot different than when I first started going to church. And it's only because of learning more about who He is, more about Jesus, and just learning that we are to imitate Jesus in the way that He lived His life. Through learning about how we're supposed to live our life and how we're supposed to die to our flesh and all of our desires, that gosh, there's been so much freedom that I've just experienced, because when we focus on Him, He just takes care of everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. It's because we're supposed to cast our cares on Him, cast all of our anxieties, all of our worries, and all of the stresses of life, every single thing. We're not supposed to carry any of this, because He's the one that carries everything. My life is now His life. So whatever He has me do, it's not me doing it, it's Him doing it. We go to church on Sundays to be in community, but I've really just learned that this walk, it's an everyday type of walk. We spend time with Him every single day of the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it's not a boring walk either. There is so much excitement in my life because of all of the things that He's doing. And it's really just a life where my eyes are completely fixed on Him. And when we fall short, because it's so easy to get distracted and all the different things that the world tries to offer us. But when I get distracted, I'm just like, Lord, I'm so sorry. I'm coming back to You, because I'm not meant to carry all of this weight. Another part of, because I've been set free from the anxiety and the depression, but I've also been completely healed from alpha-manostosis. So I was saying earlier, there was a lot of different therapies I went through. There's so many things that we've tried and all of that. In 2020, He gave me a dream where I saw myself die, and it was where I was never treated for alpha-manostosis. And I saw myself die, and then I saw myself come back to life. But when I came back to life, I did not have any challenges whatsoever. When I had this dream, it was in the midst of absolute chaos in my life, because COVID had happened and my brain could not comprehend what was going on because of all the change. I was always really bad with change. And because of my brain not being able to comprehend that, my brain went into what I call the drunk phase. And I I was not drinking at all. No alcohol was involved. If you saw me, you would have thought I was drunk. And it was because my balance was off. I could not focus. I would sway. I would laugh uncontrollably, really bad headaches, and it was a nightmare. But I had this dream in 2020 in the midst of that. And so I was really just like praying and believing that I was going to be healed. I had no idea when I was going to be healed. It was a lot of just faith and trusting in the Lord. And so I met a nutritionist in 2022, the end of 2022. She recommended that I go see a doctor. He was a chiropractic neurologist. I did not know this at the time, but he was an answer to all of the praying that I had done. When I had gotten his name and his contact and all the details, I didn't reach out to him right away because I was just wanting to focus on the nutrition stuff at first. But a few months later, I was invited to a house church, and this is where I met him. I met him before even contacting him. And it was just an absolute God thing, because I got to see like how he was before even going into his office, because I'm now starting to like walk more in my Christian faith and being more cautious of who I'm around and the people that I see and all the things. So I was a little weary of like going to another doctor and all that. But when I saw just how he was living his life, I was just like, all right, I'm going to go. So we went. And when I went, I like my brain it was so bad because I was literally running a fever because of how nervous I was. It was bad. So yeah, but he was like, I know, like, he felt that I was, like, he would be able to help me. And yeah, like, he was always like, you're going to learn how to just flow and all this stuff. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, flow? Do you see me? Like, I was also very tense and I did not relax whatsoever. But yeah, so went through that. I saw him for about a year and a half, and then he moved and was no longer able to be my doctor. But I knew that he was going to be the last doctor that I ever had. Through his treatments, his 15-minute treatments that I would go to, we started to see so much progress because what he was doing was rewiring my brain. My brain was never properly like wired in a sense. And then with the car accident on top of it, it didn't really help at all because my brain was just in chaos. And then COVID. So more chaos. But my brain was then completely healed. And now I live a normal life. So with alpha-manostosis, I am the best case scenario for what the outcome can be. And this is because people don't typically get to the part of like where I've gotten to, and I don't have the answers as to why, but a lot of my life has consisted of going to a lot of different like doctors and just different therapies to help rebuild a lot of what it was. But then there's also a lot of prayer. I've been in communication with a lot of different families who have children that have been diagnosed with alpha-manostosis. And it's to my knowledge that I am the most far along from anyone else in their journey. The only reason why I'm where I am today is because of really like how I've been through so many different therapies, but also all of the praying that has been done, because there's so much power in prayer. All right, so right now the Lord is just teaching me so much about all that He's taken me through because of not being able to remember everything. He's just like, remember when you couldn't do this? Remember when you couldn't do this? Remember when you had challenges with this? And so there's so much that He's been teaching me in that. And then He's also just been teaching me the beauty that He's created, because for a long time, I did not like how my face looked. And He's just been teaching me, He's like, I've created you in this uniqueness so that my glory can be shown through you. And I used to hide my face with glasses, and I no longer do that because my face is beautiful the way that He's created it to be. There was a part in my life where I shaved part of my hair to just show the scar, because I wanted people to know about the scar that I had, the prettier version of it. But I was looking in the mirror a year ago, and I saw my face and my scar and just how my hair was, and I was just like, this isn't who the Lord created me to be. A year ago, yeah, pretty much a year ago, I started growing that shaved side out, and currently it's to about where my chin is, maybe a little bit longer, but it's been so beautiful because He's just been showing me how He's created me to be, and how He's like, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to add glasses. You don't need to shave your head. Like, I created you the way that I created you because that's how I'm going to use you. And there's so much beauty. And I feel like I'm just seeing His beauty in literally everything in my life right now. If someone came up to me and asked, why should I follow Jesus? I would say, because there's freedom found in Him. Just all of the things that we carry in this life, you don't have to carry them. This walk, it's not the easiest walk out there, but there is so much freedom, there is so much joy, there is so much peace and comfort that we can only get from the Lord. And it's such a beautiful journey with the Lord.